All right, welcome everyone. Think of this as your ultimate study guide for that big exam on human development. Today, we're jumping on a high-speed tour through, honestly, the most transformative decade of our lives. That journey from being a kid to becoming a teenager. So, buckle up. This is going to be a fascinating ride. So let's start with the big question, right? What really is the difference between a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old? And it's so much more than just being taller or having a different taste in music. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of the body, the brain, and our entire sense of who we are. So how in the world does that incredible change actually happen? Well, let's dive in. Here's our game plan for today's study session. First, we'll look at the competent big kid years, where it's all about building skills. Then we'll brace ourselves for the physical revolution of adolescence. That's puberty. After that, we're going to peek under the hood at the teenage brain while it's under heavy construction. And finally, we'll tackle that ultimate question every teenager faces: who am I? Okay, first up, middle childhood. We're talking roughly ages 6 to 11. Now, this isn't a time of huge, dramatic leaps. Instead, think of it as the crucial period of building the foundation. It's like kids are leveling up in the game of life, you know? They're mastering new skills and figuring out the rules of the world around them. Physically, this stage is all about slow and steady wins the race. Kids are getting stronger, more coordinated, and more agile. But emotionally? Oh, that's where the real drama is. The famous psychologist Erik Erikson said the main goal here is developing a sense of industry or competence. Kids are constantly wondering, am I good at things? And this is when they really start comparing themselves to their peers, feeling that pressure to measure up. Now, here's a name you absolutely need to know for your exam: Jean Piaget. He called this stage the concrete operational stage. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means that for the first time, kids can think logically. It's a huge upgrade, but there's a catch. It only works for concrete, tangible things they can see and touch. Abstract ideas like justice or infinity, still a bit too tricky. And check this out. This is a perfect example of what Piaget was talking about. It's called seriation. A 5-year-old would really struggle with this, but a 7-year-old can line up these sticks from shortest to longest pretty easily. Why? Because their brain can now perform the mental operation of holding multiple ideas at once. This stick is shorter than that one, but that one is shorter than the next one. That's that concrete logic in action. So, the big headline for middle childhood is competence. It's happening everywhere. Their vocabulary just explodes. They make that crucial shift from learning to read to reading to learn. And friendships, they become deeper, based on real trust. A kid's sense of self gets tied directly to what they can do. I'm a good soccer player, or I'm good at math. All right, everybody, hold on tight because we are about to hit the accelerator. If middle childhood was a gentle, rolling hill, adolescence is a full-blown roller coaster. Get ready for the massive, rapid-fire changes of puberty. This timeline gives you a rough idea of how puberty unfolds. And one of the first things you'll probably notice is that girls typically get about a 2-year head start on boys. They begin their growth spurt around age 10, while boys get going around 12 and a half. These are some of the key biological milestones that kick off the journey to physical adulthood. Now, this is where things get really fascinating, because it shows that biology isn't just set in stone. This is called the secular trend. Over the past 150 years, the average age for a girl's first period has been steadily dropping in developed nations. And why? It's believed to be because of better nutrition and healthcare. This is such a powerful example of how our environment can actually influence our biological clocks. So we've seen the dramatic changes on the outside, right? But what's happening inside the teenage brain is maybe even more mind-blowing. The brain isn't just growing bigger, it's being completely reorganized. Completely rewired. So, welcome to the construction zone of the adolescent brain. I mean, just look at the difference here. Wow. On the left, a 5-year-old's brain, and on the right, a 20-year-old's. Those cool blue and purple colors show parts of the brain that have become more mature and more efficient. It's not about size. The brain is already almost its adult size. This is all about it becoming a faster, more powerful, high-performance machine. So how does this massive rewiring actually work? It really comes down to 2 key processes. First, you've got synaptic pruning. Think of the brain as a garden. It's trimming away the unused connections, the weak branches, so the important ones can grow stronger and flourish. It's literally a use it or lose it system. And second, there's myelination. This is like putting better insulation on the brain's wiring, which lets information travel way, way faster. Now here's the catch. This whole rewiring process creates a temporary but really significant imbalance. The emotional, reward-seeking, impulsive part of the brain, the limbic system, matures early. It's got a full tank of gas. But the rational, long-term planning, decision-making part, the prefrontal cortex, is still under construction. This developmental mismatch is a huge key to understanding why the teen years can be such an emotional roller coaster, often with a lot of risk-taking. Okay, so we've covered the body and the brain. Now let's get to the biggest psychological challenge of the teenage years, the search for identity. With absolutely everything changing, it's no surprise that adolescents are on this deep quest to figure out, who am I and where do I fit in this world?
And look who's back. It's Eric Erikson. For adolescents, he defined the central struggle as identity versus role confusion. He believed this whole period is about trying to figure out a stable sense of self and struggling with feeling lost or confused about your role in life. This internal tug of war is what drives so much of what we see in teenagers.
Okay, now this chart is absolute gold. You will definitely want to know this. A psychologist named James Marcia built on Erickson's idea and created this really useful map. He said you can figure out someone's identity status by looking at two things. Have they explored their options, and have they made a commitment? If you've explored and committed, that's identity achievement. If you're still exploring, you're in moratorium. If you commit without exploring, say you just adopt your parents' beliefs, that's foreclosure. And if you haven't done either, that's diffusion. So you might be wondering, what gives teenagers the mental horsepower to even think about these huge, abstract questions? Well, it's another brain upgrade. They've finally reached what Piaget called the formal operational stage. This is huge. It means they can now think abstractly. They can imagine different futures, weigh possibilities, and think like a scientist. And this new cognitive tool is exactly what they need to explore all those different potential identities. Now, this new power for abstract thought doesn't just change how teens see themselves, it changes their sense of morality, too. So let's try a classic thought experiment from another famous psychologist, Lawrence Kohlberg. Picture this. A woman is dying. A pharmacist invented a cure, but he's charging 10 times what it costs to make. Her husband, Heinz, can't get the money together. So, should he steal the drug? Just take a second and think about what you would do. Here's the brilliant part. Kohlberg wasn't actually interested in whether you said yes or no. He was interested in your reasoning. He identified 3 levels of moral thinking. At the first, pre-conventional level, your answer is all about avoiding punishment. Don't steal, you'll go to jail. At the second, conventional level, it's about upholding social rules. Stealing is against the law. But some adolescents and adults can reach the third, post-conventional level, where decisions are based on personal ethics and abstract principles, like a human life is more valuable than a law against stealing. All right, we have covered a ton of ground. Let's do a quick final review for the exam. Here are the biggest takeaways. Number 1, middle childhood is all about building competence. 2, adolescence is a period of dramatic transformation, physically and neurologically. 3, that developmental mismatch in the teen brain is key to understanding their behavior. And 4, the central driving task of the teen years is the search for identity.
So, we'll leave you with this one last thing to think about. We've just gone through the universal blueprint for how we grow up, from our bodies to our brains to our sense of self. Knowing that we are all fundamentally built to change, to grow, and to transform, how does that change the way you see your own story or the story of the people in your life? It's definitely something worth pondering.